what we know is that, um, in essence, the molecule DMT interacts with the serotonin 2A receptor. Um, that leads, according to some evidence, that leads to a form of disinhibition of, cortical activity that leads to also to the engagement of glutamatergic receptors. And these are the main excitatory systems in the brain. From here, we don't have very direct evidence, but what we think broadly is going on is that the the this, the neurons that express the serotonin 2A receptor are layer 5 pyramidal neurons. And these neurons, according to certain popular theories of how the brain is functioning, predictive processing, are thought to believe that carries predictions, or they constrain brain activity through the activity of predicting what's going on in the environment, what's going even within the brain. They're predicting incoming and sensory signals and signals within the brain. And so they act, if you will, as filters of some sort.
Interesting.
By interacting with these pyramidal neurons and dysregulating their habitual function, these layer 5 pyramidal neurons, which are also thought to sort of maintain order within the cortex by having a stable frequency and pulsation, which is broadly believed to be the alpha rhythm of the brain. By dysregulating that, it takes away these filters. And by taking away these filters of predicted mechanisms, what you have is the release of constraints, which is broadly thought to be mediated by glutamatergic activity as well. And that release of constraints results in more excitation in lower areas of brain activity, such as the visual cortex, leading to the perception of these geometries and fractals, and potentially as well a dysregulation of the medial temporal lobes, areas that are related to memory and emotion, leading to an interaction between these visual systems in the brain, stored memories and cultural memes, if you will, and emotional experiences that would give rise eventually to immersive visual experiences of inhabiting different dimensions, encountering entities or beings, and also having personally meaningful interaction with one's own stories, autobiographical memories. So, and here it is where things become particularly tricky in the heuristics that we have when we explain these things. So this is a useful model. This is one of the dominating models. Is what you call the relaxed beliefs under psychedelics hypothesis. You relax these predictions, you take these filters away. And, this idea of taking the filters out has been dominating a lot of psychedelic neuroscience, even since the times of Aldous Huxley, who wrote The Doors of Perception, who speaks about, mind at large as, this sort of universal mind that we never have direct access, and that the brain uses a reducing valve. So your perceptions are sort of like a part of that mind at large. And of course, this is like the divergence points between potential, scientific accounts of these kind of experiences and the realm of belief around the nature of consciousness as this ever-pervasive thing, that is everywhere, and panpsychism and all this kind of stuff that we don't know, right? Like this is ontological questions that are so far unanswered. But you can also take this idea of taking out the filters of the reducing valve in terms of unconstraining the brain's function. And so, for example, take this idea of memory and how we have so-called representations of what could be a character in my mind, what could be an important social relationship, what could be a spirit, what could be a ghost, that if I put my mind to it and I want to do a story, I can build a story with those characters if I decide to activate them in a conscious fashion. But one could also think that if you take those filters out, those characters can also pervade the experience of the user without necessarily having to recur to a metaphysical explanation about taking these filters out, like the esoteric element, right? That's one part of the story. And the other one is the idea of also reducing the inhibition that habitually governs the primary visual cortex, which, and there's fascinating theoretical accounts that are very much informed by evidence that the primary visual cortex, because of its ongoing fluctuations of excitation and inhibition, carries within it its the possibility of forming these fractals of geometries, which are commonly experienced by many individuals when they have psychedelic experiences, especially DMT experiences. And it's this tilt towards excitation, this excitation inhibition balance in the primary visual cortex that then leads to the perception of these geometries and these fractals. And so here again, we have the idea of taking the filter out into potentially what is kind of happening in a more quiet way in the primary visual cortex. And here you may have an access to some work of the mind in experience to some extent, right? But it's different to think about taking the filters of the mind,
right,
to taking the filters of reality,
right.
And this is where a lot of confusion happens. Yeah. I mean, from the predictive processing perspective, it's all about economy, right? Economy of energy. I mean, like rather than like the what was the given view of brain function and representations before was that somehow the brain is recovering every single aspect of the environment. Take vision, for example. Every little photon, every aspect out there of what we see as a constant processing of the brain trying to generate this mirror image of reality. And what the contemporary predictive processing accounts do is that they flip that narrative upside down and say, no, rather than the brain trying to recover all these separate, discrete elements of the environment moment by moment, the brain is doing something much more efficient, which is developing a model of external reality and simply correcting when that model deviates from the predictions that it has on